Today, I sit down with the one and only Marc Hernandez out of LA, and we chat about persistence, social media, and the power of mindset. As always, I'm your San Francisco referral partner, Shawn Kunkler. Marc, what's happening? Welcome back. Part two.
Shawn Kunkler, how are you?
I'm good, man. I really genuinely appreciate you sitting down to do this again.
I always love doing this, and I always love seeing you and having our conversations, whether it's business or personal, or what's going on up in Northern California versus what's going on in Southern, or even martial arts, as we've spoken about in the past. It's great to see you.
It's always good to see you. I love that. Just before we were recording, I saw you move your hands in martial arts, and I immediately knew it was Wing Chun. Immediately.
That's right. Center line, right
How
down
long?
the middle.
How long did you practice for?
I think I practiced for about 4 years.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you were like high advanced.
Nah, a little lower than that.
Wing Chun's pretty tough.
It's pretty tough. I learned enough to know that I wasn't good enough to totally protect myself using Wing Chun, right? Meaning, like, I know how to box, I know how to wrestle, and Wing Chun, it's very sophisticated. There's a lot to know, and it's kind of like dancing. Like, you can go through all the moves, but once you get on the floor, you could still look bad, right? So I think that's where I was with Wing Chun. I think I needed to give it more time, I like it.
It's like real estate. It's like right at that fourth year, you're like, I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't know all of what I'm doing just yet.
Exactly. That's it.
Interestingly enough, I think, in light of all the everything that's in the news these days, I'll put it like that, I feel like there's the new agents coming into the industry. There's going to be a longer, I don't know how to say it, almost like maturation process where they're going to need an apprenticeship longer because it's going to be much harder to convert those buyers into actual clients.
I agree. I think before the NAR settlement, there were ways to get real estate transactions done and take clients on fairly easily, right? An aunt or an uncle could send a junior, let's call it junior, agent, a client. They could, show them some properties. They could ask a sales manager or a mentor, hey, what do I ask? What do I do? To get the deal done. Bingo, they got a deal. Yes, they're on the page. They're the next $1 million listing agent in their mind, right? But I think now, what's happening with NAR has really, and I'm excited about this, raised the level of professionalism in our business, right? I mean, in the past, real estate agents were kind of looked down upon. I mean, like, insurance agents, real estate agents, car salesmen, right? But I mean, you and I know, and unlike much of the, general public, that there's a lot to it, right? I mean, we're marketing, we're sales, we're operations, we're legal to some extent, right? And there's really a lot to this business, more than the average person knows. And I just think that now, just like going out and being very professional and very deliberate, intentional, and polished in getting a listing presentation presented to take on a new listing, I think the same levels are going to be required on the buy side. And that's, there's a lot of buyers out there. So I agree. I think there's going to be a longer, as you said, maturation period, apprenticeship, training. There's going to be a lot more to it. Absolutely.
Especially in both of our markets. Our median home price here is 1.4, which that the buyers tend to be a little bit more sophisticated. And so you have to have, to your point, all of those communication pieces on lockdown. You have to know how to just present everything in a way where it's easy for them to digest and make a decision. And in the beginning, you just don't know. I mean, you don't even know what you don't know. And that's not even, I mean, there's market conditions, there's communicating your value to the client, knowing what your actual value is, knowing all the nuances on the back end. I mean, for a
Hmm.
listing, it's a 102 step checklist to make sure that nothing gets missed.
Amazing.
And
Crazy.
as a beginner, you don't have that. And
No.
so, yeah. And I'm not, for somebody listening, I'm not trying to persuade you to be on a team, but or to have a partner with an agent who's seasoned, but it'll give you a
Can't
huge
can't
advantage.
hurt. Can't
I
hurt.
mean,
I heard something the other day that I thought was really interesting, and it resounded with me. And it is that there are going. Let's face it, NAR and the new ruling and the new process is here,
mhm,
right? And people are always opposed to change. I always,
yeah,
I tend to think that change is generally good. It's how you adapt to the change, right?
sure.
Um, but what I heard the other day is someone mentioned that there are going to be agents with these changes that are resentful.
Hmm.
There are going to be agents that are hopeful, and there are agents that are going to be skillful. And I think those that are skillful and really focus on that side of the spectrum of feeling, resentful, hopeful, skillful, and those that lead with dignity, professionalism, and grace are going to be the ones that really that really shine in throughout all this.
I love that. That's a great way to kind of figure out which camp that you're in. And if you're not in the camp you want to be in, it's time to move. Um,
Yeah, I've been in some sales meetings, and you just hear kind of a lot of hemming and hawing and whatnot, and it's just that's not going to help you. I mean, this is the new normal. I
yeah.
mean, sink or swim. I hate to be so blunt about it, but I
Yeah.
mean, we're business people. We run businesses. We're entrepreneurs, and whether you're in the real estate business or the legal profession or entertainment business or whatnot, there are going to
Yeah.
be changes. There's going to be strikes. There's going to be
Sure.
tax changes. There's going to be economic impacts, and you have to be able um, to take on those changes and know how to pivot in the way that keeps you on track the most. And you were talking about martial arts and in balance earlier, right? And it's like we've got to be able to stay in the middle and stay balanced through all this.
It's so true. I had an epiphany. We were in one of the sales meetings, which, by the way, when the sales meeting, it's typically the sales meetings are, and not all offices, but they are super productive for 95% of it. And then the last 5%, everybody starts asking questions, and then the tone change. I get up and leave because I know the
Yeah,
tone is going to change, and I don't want to start my day with a negative attitude. So I'll just leave those meetings, and I'll
I'm
basically
with
leave
you.
on the high note. Um, is
Absolutely.
is one piece. My epiphany
Elvis has
was
left the building.
exactly. We're like, I'm out. It's a good show.
Thank
um,
you, Los Angeles.
but I was sitting in one of the meetings and I thought, well, what if I was a brand new agent? I started today, and this is the process. Like, what would I do? And I was like, I would just learn the process,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like literally,
It's
I
kind
was
of like
like,
they don't
oh,
know what they don't know, right, from the past. And this is
right,
this is this is where we are today. I mean, talk about being present. You can't worry about the future. The past is behind us. We're right now in the present. Be where your feet are, as they say. Um, and they don't know the old way, so that's probably better for them.
and I think if we have that mindset, that hungry, I'll just learn it. It'll get us, some of us, it'll get us unstuck because this is the new reality. And the new reality is you're going to have this paper signed before you start working with somebody. It's like, just
Absolutely.
figure out your talk points then at that point.
You know, I've been in sales my entire adult life,
Same.
and I am not making any judgment here, but I am surprised at how many agents I do see that don't it's okay that they didn't have any sales experience prior. That's fine. But those that don't learn how to sell currently, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what we do. That's like a majority of what we do is sales. Sure, there's marketing, there's operations, branding, promotion, and all that. But primarily, what we do is sell, and we have to learn how to always be sharpening the knife, so to speak, and
Hmm.
increasing our skills, whether we're selling real estate or other products. And I really think that this change is going to raise the bar on salesmanship. Can you say salesmanship anymore? Saleswomanship, salespersonship.
Salespersonship.
So, anyways, sales
I
skills.
I didn't realize you were in sales for that long. I've been in sales for north of 20 years. So
Yeah.
it's just part of my DNA. The one thing that actually very much surprised me when I got in the industry was the level of micro sales that happened throughout an experience. And it's not just the closing, that's a sale. But
What do you mean when you say micro sales?
I mean, selling your buyer on the idea of prepping the property, selling them on
Right.
which stager to use, selling
The
them
sale within the
on
sale. Yeah.
yeah, and it's all these like mini negotiations, and you're constantly working on your skills. And I think the big thing with people who don't understand sales is there's two buckets, and everybody tries to use one. And you have objections, which there are problems that have to be turned into questions, and then you have to answer them. And then you have conditions, and conditions you have zero control over. Period.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I think with this, everybody's making it a condition, and they're instead like turn it into a solvable problem, and then work on that solution, because that's the new reality we're living in.
Well, that's
And
what we get paid to do, right? We get paid to
right,
solve problems. And if we can't solve just one more problem that buyers and sellers are, being faced with, then we've got
exactly.
we've got more ground to cover. Personally,
Yeah, I mean, at the root of it, we get paid what we get paid because we solve problems. We know
yeah,
who and how to connect dots and figure this stuff out.
yeah,
We're one step ahead. We're
yeah.
faster than Google. We have it downloaded in our brain. We can solve these problems. And I think at
You
the
know,
end of the day,
yeah. Go
uh,
ahead.
I think at the end of the day, and this is probably a little controversial, is I think people who can't sell, who just don't understand how to position and hold the line, the very first thing they do is cut price. Anytime they can't sell
That's
it, they
so true.
you just it's the easy lever to pull. Drop the price.
They sell out. They give it away.
Terrible.
It's not good.
I mean,
It's that.
literally every single industry does this. It's not just ours. It's it's like you go to Banana Republic and it's like 50% off today, which they always have a sale, and now you kind of almost feel stupid when you pay full price, but that's besides the point. But it's really hard once, especially in our industry. It's like, let's say for example, you're like, you know what, I'll do you a favor, and I'll drop the price. I'll my to cover all my fees, I'm at, let's say, 2.5%. But for you, I'll do it for 1% to get the contract. You get it signed, and then they refer you to their friend. Guess what their friend wants? 1%. Then their friend's going to refer somebody, and guess what that person wants? 1%. Now you've just built your whole business on an eroded price, and then you're working crazy hours to try to catch up and make ends meet, and you've buried
Yeah.
yourself. Terrible. It's a terrible way to go about it.
At the end of the day, we're a service, not a commodity. And
Yeah.
I think when agents start to cut their price because that's the easy way to save the deal, is then we become less of a service and more of a commodity. And
Yeah.
just like the old um, quote, "A rising tide raises all boats," a lowering tide lowers all boats. So I think
Yeah.
we really need to stick together, all of us, to maintain our level of service, professionalism, and and not sell out and become discount brokers just because someone or because agents are fearful of losing the deal. You have to be able to say no to some transactions. You really do.
100%. I mean, and not for nothing, that is the first negotiation. And that is the example you're showcasing to that client.
How much are you worth?
Yeah, if you can't hold the line for yourself, there is no way, zero way you're going to hold it when those offers come in for that client. There's absolutely no way.
100%.
And I think that's a terrible way to kick off that relationship of like, all right, I'm weak now, I'm going to be weak later.
Exactly. No, exactly. I was thinking about, what agents might want to be thinking about right now, in the new normal,
Yeah.
if you will. And I think the things that come to mind are, you know, leading with and focusing on empathy,
Mm-hmm.
strong communication and confidence with the communication as to how you're presenting, your value, how you're presenting, the commission, how compensation is being handled now. Being able to take some of these complex conversations and simplify them, redoing. I'm currently working on, I'm a little OCD like this. I'm like, okay, I got to redo my entire process, my entire intake process, my presentation, my slides, everything. I'm taking this and just going, I don't know about overboard, but I'm just like, I want to be the best at what I do, right?
Same.
So, marketing, branding, sales, slides, social media posts, video, everything you do to communicate with a client or consumers or, people that follow you on social, I think has to be re-looked at and sharpened, to the next level. So those are the things that I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, it's funny. I was really inspired yesterday, actually, when we were in our mastermind group, and Brian Knox.
We are masterminds, aren't we? We're really
we are
masters
masterminds.
at being mindful,
minded,
or something like that. Minded, yeah.
But Brian Knox showed his new buyer
Oh,
presentation, and I was like, "Oh my God, I got to step up my game." It was so well
shout
done.
out to Brian. That was so polished.
It was, and it was like he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, I'll just show you guys," and I was like, "Oh my God, like this is your oh by the way." It was.
I've already put that presentation up on eBay, and I'm trying to make money off of it.
Always be selling, man. I love it.
Always be selling. No, Brian's a great guy, and you can tell that he's a pro's pro,
Yeah.
and he's done his homework big time on that. So, and there were some great takeaways from that. Good. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it was really, and I really appreciated too. They have a different onboarding, which I wrote this down, and I'm going to actually work with my team on it. But they have a different onboarding if they get a web lead versus they get an open house lead versus a referral or a past client. And I think even the nuances of how you approach those people,
Yeah.
what those conversations, what those communications are, they're very different. And in this new world, if somebody's brand new coming into you, you have to you have to boil the frog slowly, is the old sales phrase. And so you have to step them through a much slower process to get them comfortable with your expertise before you go for the close, if you will.
Absolutely. The other thing that I have been thinking about is, do you know who Jay Abraham is?
I do. Yeah. Old school.
I'm a big Jay Abraham fan, and he is old school. I'm not a fan of him because he's old school. I'm a fan of him because of the way he looks at businesses. And he's been in so many different businesses that he's learned, sales, marketing, operations, advertising, direct response, branding from so many different businesses that he's become like a guru of how to maximize, optimize sales revenue in just about any business, right? He's got a couple of books out there. Look him up if you haven't read them, Jay Abraham. But one thing that what really kind of inspired me was how you can look at like, for example, look, as real estate agents, we could look at other businesses on how to do our communications, our sales, our marketing in this new world, right?
Hmm.
Like, how are financial advisors, how do they intake new clients? How do lawyers intake new clients? How do wealth managers, market, and do they have forms? Do they have, how look at their websites, the language that they use,
Yep.
and take that and bring it into our business, put it in the pot, stir it with your own personal taste, communication, verbiage, whatnot, and you can really kind of raise the level of what we can raise the level of what we're doing by looking outside of real estate.
Amen. I think in a lot of industries, people within the industry don't change the industry. It's people coming into that industry. It's the disruptor. And the disruptor usually comes from somewhere else and they applied it. There's so many phenomenal cases. There's the one that just popped in my head, and I can't remember which came first, but there was the drive up ATM or the coffee shop. I can't remember which it was, but the person did the drive up and was like, "Oh, this would be great for this other industry," and so then it was adopted. I think it was the
Yeah.
the drive up coffee shop gave way to the drive up bank teller. And so
Right.
I agree. I think there's a
Well,
lot of lessons to be had from other industries and
well,
colleagues.
like one of the things Jay says is he always brings up the FedEx as one example. Um, Brilliant business, successful business. They based their distribution system on how they would, you know, fly to certain hubs and then ship out via trucks to different sub hubs, if you will, and get the products out there. They based that model on how the central banking system, the US central banking system, had their regional hubs and then hubs within those hubs. And they just took that overlay and put it into a logistics format and came up with Federal Express and were the first to do that. And
Wow.
look at how successful they are. Yeah.
Which that I don't remember the full story, but the guy who started the company, I think it was like one of his papers in college was
Fred Smith. Fred
yeah,
Smith started the company. Yeah.
like create a mock-up of a business, and that was
Yeah.
in college.
Isn't that
That was his
amazing?
idea. I'm like,
Oh my God. Maybe we should go back to college.
Jesus, I don't know. Hey, when you were in school, were you the
I
guy?
wonder if my fraternity would take me back.
Maybe. When you were in school, did you always get in trouble for just talking to everybody, which now is your skill in networking?
Yes, especially in elementary and middle school. Maybe not as much in high school, a little bit there, but in middle school, I was like the teacher's terror because I was always talking, always yapping, always trying to crack the joke, trying to get someone to smile or laugh. My son's the same way now.
That is so
Yeah,
good.
and now that's what I do. I like talk to people all the time
I love it. I
and
love
try
that
to engage.
I love they didn't break you and wear that out of you and you kept it because
Yeah.
that is your superpower. I see you on all the different panels and speaking and networking. You have it is definitely your gift, your strength.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. There's still some clients out there that I'd like to uh, what do you do? Do spit wads towards, right? I mean, remember when you used to do that in school? You get a straw and you get a little piece of paper and put it in your mouth, roll around.
Oh my God, that's flashbacks like fifth grade. I would love to actually talk about well, let's high level it and you can kind of give everybody your high level of your past life prior to real estate because I think it's really fascinating. Your connection to music and then how you parlay that into your brand really. I mean, you even have a Beatles poster behind you, but
Yeah.
your newsletter, the Beat, and just the way your Instagram is curated. I don't know what the question is within all of that, but I've always been a huge fan of the way that you present yourself, and more specifically, the way your Instagram has been curated in just such a cool and unique way where there's a lot of people you're just like, oh great, it's another house, cool, let me unfollow you. And you don't do that.
Yeah. No, 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 no. Yeah, I see. I see the same thing, right? I see people that on their Instagram, all they have is just house, 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 house.
Yeah.
Uh, and and the thing that comes to mind is like if you had a pizza restaurant, if you posted a picture of a pizza with pepperoni or sausage or whatever you're putting on the pizza on every single tile of your Instagram, you're going to have people unfollow you. But there's always, I think there's within every brand, within every person, there's a story. And I think that story needs to be told. I think that story needs to be unfolded. So, for example, with the pizza example, like, you know, you could post a picture of this Italian oven that was flown from Italy and cost X amount of dollars and was manufactured by the foremost pizza oven manufacturer in Italy, right?
Mm.
You could do the next post could be on your head chef, right, who's flipping the pizzas and whatnot, and what their background is and what got them into the pizza business, right?
Yeah.
Or you could do a post about a bag of semolina flour that is used to go in these pizzas. Now you're creating tiles that are telling the story about the pizza store, what the brand is, what's interesting and captivating about it, rather than pizza, 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 right?
Mm.
Or rather than house, house, house. So the way I curate my Instagram is I is very similar. And I want people to go to my Instagram. I'm not about I want people to follow me. I will follow people back if they're active. I don't just follow everybody, right? If someone's on Instagram, they follow me and they haven't posted since 2019, right? It's like, well, they're not really. Come on, let's keep it. Let's go, right? So, but I want people to go to my Instagram because it tells my story, it tells my brand, it tells whether you will think that I'm likable,
Mm.
knowable, likable, and trustable, right? Someone, because we're not for everybody, right? A client that wants to work with you may not want to work with me, may not like my vibe, right? And the flip side of that as well. So I think I'm really into the storytelling nature of who I am and what I've done. And I've had people that have literally left their agent to come work with me because, in their words, and I said, well, wait a minute, you have an agent? Yeah, we do have an agent. And he's a really nice person and he's a good agent. But, well, then what? Because we like the way you do it. Were the exact words. Like the way I do it. They had never worked with me before. They didn't know if I could close a deal to save my life. But
Yeah.
they came to me because they like my flow.
And that is such an important thing is I think at the end of the day, clients pick people by who they like. That's their gut instinct, and then they just backfill reasons behind that. And social media is such a good way to just to put the word out there. But I love that
It
you
is.
reminded me of Zig Ziglar, super old school sales guru, and he said, "Sell the sizzle, not the steak." And
I love that.
that was
I
your
love that.
analogy of the like you were painting such a cool picture of this pizza oven, and I'm like imagining it being handmade in Italy, and they're taking way too long of coffee breaks to get it finished before it ships over.
Right.
Um, and yeah,
That's interesting.
it's yeah, it's captivating. It's and even for me, again, it's like, oh, I sold another house. My imagination doesn't fire off. I don't imagine anything. But when you painted the picture with the oven, like in my mind, it's in my mind it was stainless steel, and it was like it's handcrafted, and it's Italy, so it's like I imagine Ferrari and Ducati
Yes.
and like this hand craftsmanship and this beauty to it. And so I there's already like feelings and emotions that are churning behind this thing rather than, oh, here's the thing I sold.
Exactly. And I think people I get a little tired hearing people saying that they don't have time for social media, right? Or they don't want to learn how to do it or whatever. Because, if you have a brand, whether it's you're a real estate agent or you have a yogurt shop or you have a dress shop or whatnot, you better have a social media presence, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really about, well, look, put it this way. Let me just say this. It works. It really works. I track business that I've done as a result of people coming to me from social media. And it's literally somewhere between, in GCI, 500,000 and $1 million in GCI, directly attributable to clients that have come to me from my social media. So guys, it does work, right? It does work. And look, everybody has their way. I'm not a big fan of people trying to be, look, be yourself, be authentic, show them who you are. Video is amazing. I personally need to be doing more video. I have not. So it's time. But I think it's a great thing to really let people know who you are. And if they like who you are, they're going to want to work with you and they'll come to you. I'm not a big fan of doing funny, silly, cat on the piano entertainment stuff on social media. I think that gets a little too cutesy and it takes away from the professionalism. You know what I'm referring to, right?
Yeah.
The people that do the song and dance stuff, and they want to be entertainers a little bit too much. I think some of that is okay, but I think you got to be careful that you don't become, you know what I'm saying? It's, I don't want to offend. I don't want to offend anybody, but
no, but I actually,
at the end of the day, we're professionals.
Hey friends, are you in the group of agents who are not creating social media content because either A, you don't have the time, or B, you just don't know what to do, or a combination of A and B? If so, you're 100% not alone. In working with Steve Blank Jr., what I have learned is to create a pillar piece of content, right? What that means is you actually create one longer form, which he will walk you through and guide you to doing. And then what him and his team do is dissect that into all smaller micro pieces of content. I know it all sounds overwhelming, but where Steve's strength truly comes into play is he strategically helps you build a brand, identify who your ideal client is, and then how do you reverse engineer and go after creating content to communicate simply to them. So if you want more information on this, there's a free resource guide that you can pick up now by simply heading to steveblankjr.com/realtor180. It's interesting with me reflecting on that in my personal brand, similar to you, is I realized from day one, wear a suit when you're out in public, because I didn't have the experience, but I wanted to be perceived as having the experience. And the way we're perceived is through people's eyes within the first few seconds of them meeting us. And so I too, on social media, you won't see me lip syncing, you won't see me dancing, but that's
what I mean.
That's
the,
not
the TikTok thing. That's TikTok maybe.
But I also think, the agents who do that and they crush it, that's awesome because they're being authentic to themselves. And I think that's the important piece here is find.
They are and they aren't. I'm going to be in an argument. Some people are going to hate me on this, right? But they are and they aren't. I think, one thing that some are, but many real estate agents just follow what the next real estate agent does, right?
A lot of times, yeah.
Right? So someone's sending postcards in my neighborhood that said just listed, just sold, and therefore I got to send postcards that say just listed, just sold, right? Or this person's got this CRM. Oh my God, they're crushing it. I got to use that CRM, right? Same thing. So, this person's doing juggling, right? And talking about interest rates, Oh, that works. I got to do that. So is that really your true authentic self, or are you just following what you think, right? So I think you have to dig deep and find out who you really are. I like being who I am. I like showing people that I'm a family person. I love my wife and my son. I'm very proud of my son. You can see I post stuff about him. His name is Lennon. He's 13. He's an amazing rock and jazz guitar player, lead guitar player, and a
He
front man.
is.
I post stuff about him. I love music. So in the past, I've done like soundtrack for a Sunday, and I like whatever album I'm listening to that day, I share it with everybody and hope someone will post what they're listening to or maybe make a comment, right? I love to travel. I love food. I love, architecture, design. I try to think of my Instagram like a lifestyle magazine that has different sections: art, beauty, architecture, music, celebrity, whatnot. And every time I do post something, I look at the collage of it and go, oh well, I this last one was a dark color, and so I need something light and bright here, and what can I do there? And so I look at it artistically too. And so when people do look at my social media, they hopefully they're getting a sense that I'm kind of a creative person too.
And I think that's the important part, right? Is like what we like about people, our friends, our close friends, our closest friend, is we know a lot of different things about them. We know their personal interests, and the new currency within this industry is people are going to work with people they like, and they want to connect. Like they genuinely want to connect, and I think that's the important part. And even you and I connected. My stepson loves the Beatles. The very first time we met, I saw your background and we had a conversation about the Beatles.
We did.
And that, I mean, I remember that, even the feeling of that conversation, right? That's what initially, that's where our relationship started to form. And it wasn't like, well, how many houses did you sell? Well, I sold this many.
Oh gosh,
and
yeah.
that's where it falls apart. And I think, to go back to the authentic piece is, and I heard this one as advice, is go through your photos and look at the last 5 photos that you took. Those are the things you're interested in. Those are the things you should be talking about. Like if you're
Interesting. I
taking
like
pictures of
that.
cars all the time, it's probably because you love cars, and maybe parlay that into every house that you show the garage and talk about what amazing car you imagine being parked there. I don't know, but I think there's Rebecca Donatelli, who, it's hilarious. She's always posting about coffee, and I love
I
it.
love it. Great
That's her
name, by the
thing.
way, Rebecca Donatelli. That's a great name.
It is.
She probably likes
Yeah,
Italian
and
coffee and espresso. Espresso
a friend of
makers.
mine, Bianca, is she's a biologist and she studies sharks. So like every other
Oh, very
post
cool.
is about a shark. And
Love it.
it's funny because I'm like, as I think of these people, I immediately associate, and I always connect music, and I think of Lennon, and I'd love seeing him jam out, by the way.
Thank you.
He's so good, like, and he looks old for his age, but I'm always
He
like, oh my
does.
god, he's
He's
so
taller than
young
me.
and
He's
he's
six
just
foot.
crushing it. So
Yeah.
good. I can't, like I can't wait to watch his career where he decides to carry this, because he's definitely got it.
He wants to be a rock star or a performer. So we'll see. I continue to support that, and he's really good. But but yeah, the social media stuff. I think it's just really the you want people to find the emotional connection to you,
Yeah, yeah,
and any way you can do it. Look, if it's juggling, while you're talking about real estate, and that's you, you know, that's great. That's great. But I think being, showing variety in your posts and in your
hmm
reels
hmm
and in your stories is very important. But let's see who you are and not just the houses, because that doesn't
yeah.
do anything.
So to kind of unpack a little bit of the transactions that you've closed, or even just the connections that you've made that have led to real estate conversations, are they coming from people, buyers and sellers, who are kind of stumbling upon you through social media, or are you connecting with agents who then are making recommendations, referrals to you?
So it's a mixture of sphere database, people I know and have met throughout the years, It's definitely social media. It's agent to agent referrals nationally. It's open house leads. I built my business in the beginning, not really knowing how to, 7 years ago when I started, I built it by doing open houses. That's what really got me started. I didn't
Same.
have any transactions under my belt. I would The first thing I started doing, I started reaching out to all of the agents in my office. This was pre-Compass, and saying, "Hey, Shawn, would love if I could, you know, take you for a cup of coffee. Love to hear about your business, tell you about mine," which was non-existent. Um, and we'd go have coffee. I'd noticed that you had a lot of listings, and maybe you didn't have a team. And then at the end, I'd say, "Well, listen, I'm always available for open houses. If you want a weekend open house, if you want someone to do your broker open," which generally people don't want to do a broker open because it's just brokers coming through, right? There's not as many
Yeah.
leads. "I'll do your brokers open. I'll give you a great report, da 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 da," all the things that I would do. And I just started rinsing and repeating that model. And,
Same.
I got a cadence going that was literally 7 open houses per week. Um, the way I did that is I would do a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what I would call the after school open house,
Yep.
right? I'd set out a dozen signs, 3 to 5, try to catch the moms or dads picking their kids up from school. Many times they were quiet and
Yeah.
very little traffic, but it was okay because I made the open house my office. I made calls. I sent out emails. I brought a tripod for my iPhone. I made it my studio where I would say, "Hey, today I'm here at 123 Banana Street," and blah, 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 and I'd get that out there and take a photo of me setting in a photo or a video or whatever, me setting up open house signs, showing people that I'm working hard. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I would do a Saturday morning for someone, a Saturday afternoon for someone, and the same thing on Sunday. So that's 7. I think my very first year of doing that. And by the way, I was also in a mastermind. Talk about the power of masterminds. I was a mastermind with 2 other agents, and we got on the call once a week, and we talked about, "Hey, do you have any open houses? What do you got? What are you doing? What are you hearing from people? What are you telling them? What's your script, if you will? All
Hmm.
this."
Hmm. Hmm.
And we called ourselves the open house guys, right? We had a group chat called the open house guys, right? And so we learned from each other. We pushed each other. We remained accountable to each other. And I think that my first year of doing that, I think I was upwards of full year. I was upwards of like 200 plus open houses and built a lot of my business that way. And
That
then
is amazing.
within my sphere, I come from the entertainment business. My very first career was commercial real estate right out of college, high rise office building, sales
Hmm.
and leasing. But then I pivoted into entertainment. I wanted to be a big time talent agent, right? And I left a 6-figure career in commercial real estate and came to Beverly Hills to work in the mailroom at UTA, United Talent Agency, and eventually represented screenwriters and directors, and then pivoted from that and got onto the advertising side of television
Hmm.
entertainment. So I landed an amazing job at Fox Television Network, primetime, and American Idol, and sold a different type of real estate, and that was advertising spots on your desktop, mobile, or a phone for the major brands. And so from commercial real estate to um, motion picture, literary and talent representation to television advertising, I built a pretty big sphere of people that I know, and so that has really helped me and contributed to my ability to do business.
Whew. I love your attitude with open houses. I feel like you and I literally did the same thing. Like I figured out really quick. Like I'm really good in person. I'm really good at open houses. How do I do as many as I possibly can?
100%.
And
100%. And
and just
my team gets tired of me saying this, but my little phrase, mantra, whatever, was always a slow open house is better than no open house,
100%. And my
right?
best open houses were the ones that three people came through because I had so much time to talk to them. I wasn't distracted, I wasn't pulled away, and I can really engage and have a really robust conversation and then eventually get their information. And it's, I mean, the likelihood of you bumping into a buyer, pretty damn high. And then if you miss the buyer, it's the neighbor who's a potential seller. And so it's like net net, you're the potential for you to meet somebody who will transact with you is so incredibly high. One of my tricks with Brokers Tour that I learned is I would just ask the agent, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you just put it on a as a public open house also?" And then you would get the like
Beautiful.
you would get the lunchtime
Why not?
people who they're like, "Oh, I saw this on Redfin and I decided to pop in." And again, you just need that one. You just need the one person. That's the math. And I always my mantra to myself is literally that is I just need to meet one person, and
All
that
it
person can
takes.
have cash, and I will get paid at the end of the week. So I
All it
just need
takes
to
is
meet
one.
one person.
All it
And
takes
so
is
I
one.
would get so excited about that. And I love too, I don't know if you were the same way, but I loved hosting the same one week after week
Yeah.
because I got, you would get all the questions out of the way the first day. And then the second day, you would refine how you were answering them. And the third day, you would then be able to create the stories and
You're the
really connect
pro,
with them. Yeah.
right? I love that. I love that. You just took me back, Sean, to one of my very first open houses. I was a new agent, had not transacted in my first, I don't know exactly, call it 4 months, 5 months. And, uh, and I just needed to get that first deal, right? So I did
Yeah.
this open house, um, in West Hollywood, and this mother and 20 something year old daughter came in, and it was slow. And like, just like you said, I had plenty of time to talk to them. And I just kept
Yeah.
to myself, I just said, just keep talking to them. Right. I'm like, how do you just keep the conversation going? Ask questions, keep it going, and keep it comfortable, of course, and organic.
Yeah.
And I did. And so at the end, I made sure I got their information and they had my information. I connected with the girl, and I was older, closer in age to the mom, so connected with the mom. And so anyway, I started, trying to get a meeting for a buyer consult, and we'd get it on the books, and then it was canceled. And then
Mm.
this went on for like weeks, and it was always getting canceled. And I remember at the time my wife saying, "It just doesn't seem like it's happening. It's like maybe she doesn't want it to happen." I go, "Nope." I go, until she says no, get the heck out of my life, right? I'm going to keep following up. And they say that I think it's the average number of touches or connections to convert a client in the real estate business is about 12. And the
Hmm.
and most agents on average give up after 3 tries. After the third try, they say, they're not interested. I'll be bothering them if I try the fourth time. I must have tried to set this buyer consultation up 20 times. And then it was right. And it still she wasn't saying no, I'm not interested, get the heck out of my life, whatever. And so we finally made that happen. And then after that, it was like getting out to see properties. We'd set that up. That would be canceled. But I just like rodeo, right? Just grab the rope. I just kept holding on, right? As long as I could, until I got bucked off. And so anyway, long story short, and I know this is already a long story, but I finally made that deal happen. It was my first transaction. It's a beautiful building up on the Sunset Strip called Shoreham Towers, and it was a
Wow.
$620,000 condo. And I thought I should be on $1 million listing for doing that. It was amazing. But the only reason I you made me think back of my first, and but I think there's something to be said about tenacity and not thinking you're bothering people or they don't want to hear from you again, you have nothing to lose by continuing to persist. Everything to gain.
I completely agree. Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, I feel genuinely most people who don't have sales experience will give up really, really, really early, and it's like I'm talking to a financial advisor right now. I've rescheduled him probably 4 times, not because I don't want to hire him. He actually comes highly, highly recommended by 2 of my very dearest friends. I'm really busy. I've been traveling. I've been doing a whole bunch of other stuff, and I have to keep pushing him off. But he's keeps following up with me, and he's like, "Hey, I know you're busy, but here's some more availability." And then I'll miss the email, and then go back and reschedule. But I assure you, if he stops being persistent, I will not hire him because I will forget
Absolutely.
and be on to the next thing. But because he's on it, he's being proactive. It's keeping me moving forward, and and I think that's the big illusion is not now is not the same as no. And
Right.
like that person, they weren't ready 19 emails in, but they were ready at the 20th. So it wasn't a no, it was a not now. And a lot of times too, I mean, look at our own personal habits. We get busy and we don't respond to an email. Not because we're trying to be jerks, because we didn't respond. A day goes by, it gets buried, we forgot about it. We accidentally marked it as read. We don't go back, and it's out of our mind. And if that person doesn't say, "Hey, I know you're busy, but wanted to push this back to the top," you're like, "Oh shoot, that's right. I forgot to respond to you. Let me do that now." It's like I think we have to step back and not take this
How,
stuff personally
yeah.
and be
How
persistent.
many
And I
times have we? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Totally interrupted you.
no
Sorry,
no
Shawn.
no no. I was gonna say that I love that you were just persistent.
Penalty points to me for interrupting. You can dock me
Well,
points.
thank God for a good
I'll,
editor.
I'll go sit in the corner. Yeah, you can cut that out. Sorry. What I was going to say um, is how we've both been in this situation. How many times have we persisted and called over time to someone, and you're just not hearing back, and finally they pick up and they get back to you and they go, "I'm so glad you hung in there with me. I
Yes.
was going through something and I just
Yes.
couldn't deal with it at the time. My mother, da 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 da, or I had something financial or something with my health or whatever. And you hung in there with me. And you almost get emotional over it. And they almost get emotional because, they meant enough to you to keep talking. I'm just talking on the friendship level. I'm not even talking on the business level, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
"Thank you, made my day by calling me and connecting and talking," and it wouldn't have happened without the persistence, right? Um, and so I think, I mean, I used to even feel that with my own family. Sometimes I used to feel like, how come I'm always calling my mom? How come I'm always calling my sisters? Right? They don't call me. It's easy to turn things around and throw a pity party for you, right? But the
Yeah.
way I look at it now, I totally flip the script on that. Is like there are pitchers and there are catchers, right?
Hmm.
And the pitcher is the one that initiates the ball going, and there's someone who catch, and that person that catches doesn't necessarily want to pitch, but they're good at catching, right? So I figure, it's just I'm the kind of person that is a networker, a connector, a caller, a persister, and
Yeah.
and that's who I am. And I have to appreciate and respect that you may not want to be the one that initiates the call, but you'll graciously receive the call, and we will have an amazing, wonderful time on that phone call. But as long as I remember, I'm the pitcher, you're the catcher.
Dude, that's awesome. I've never heard that, and it completely makes sense. It's funny. Our house it's the Christmas house, it's the Thanksgiving house, it's the summer barbecue house. It's, I'm the one who will call everybody and be like, "Hey, next
Yeah.
Saturday, come over. We're firing up the grill. We're going to throw some steaks on." And it's fascinating. I've never looked at it from that perspective, and it totally makes sense because all my friends and family, they're always like, yeah, hell yeah, we'll be there. That sounds amazing.
You
But
make
they're
it
not
happen. You're the producer.
it's fascinating. I've never had that distinction in my 48 years of life. I've never heard it as described the way you just did.
And
And it
that's what we are as
makes
real
sense.
estate agents. We're producers. I mean, coming from the entertainment business, I think that's one of the reasons that attracted me to real estate is because you can be, in the movie business, a producer, you are like the conductor and you bring it all together. You find the written material, you find the screenplay, right? You go out to actors and you find actors that are gonna you can send the screenplay to you can find those that want to attach themselves to the project. You find if you're a junior producer, you find a larger producer who has more credibility, more credits that can then go with you into Universal, right, or Disney or Paramount and pitch this film, this project, right, that you're doing. And then once the movie goes into production, you're dealing with, above the line, below the line, financing issues, scheduling issues, budgeting issues, all of this, right? And you're making all of that happen. And I think that's what I love about being a real estate agent is I'm being a producer and I'm doing the same thing with working with, you know, Compass and Compass marketing and working with the client and working with other agents collaboratively, working with my financing partner, the financing partner who's working with the client, and working with the listing agent and putting this project together, right? That is going to result in a transaction, a sale, and changing someone's life and lifestyle in a very wonderful and positive way. And so, producers get things done. Producers make the calls. Producers are the initiators and the ones that go out to different groups to get this done. And we can't be sitting around saying, "Oh, they didn't call me back." I feel bad about that.
It's so true. That is such a cool way to look at it, and I love your enthusiasm behind it. I genuinely do. Of the way you describe producer, it's funny. It's almost something that was like borderline frustrating with to me of always being the one having to do that. But the way that you just
We've all been there.
framed it in my mind of like, oh, there's like that's actually my role. That's my strength. And I genuinely I appreciate your just the enthusiasm in the way you shared that. I'm gonna carry it for sure.
Ah, that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, man. This was awesome. I always love our chats. Unfortunately, we're at time. In a shade over, which I'm not
Oh,
surprised.
we can't go another hour? You sure you don't want to do it?
We probably easily can. I don't think it would actually be a challenge.
I think we would have no problem with that.
Cool.
I appreciate you, Shawn. I gotta say, I appreciate you as a friend, as a fellow Compass agent. I really appreciate how you're bringing people together with your podcast. I appreciate what you're doing with your the group that we do, your calls that we do with what do you call the group call that we're on?
The inner circle.
The inner circle. I love all of those agents and yourself on that, and I'm honored to be a part of that inner circle, and honored to be a part of your podcast, and honored to be a friend of yours.
Same. I genuinely appreciate it. And so, really quick, I know we talked about your Instagram. What's the best way for people to find you?
So Instagram is the Marc Hernandez. And if anybody wants to send me an email, it's just first name dot last name at compass.com, marc.hernandez at compass.com. And Marc is with a C. And I'm always open to hearing from agents. I'm always open to be there to help or support anyone and want people to consider me a resource and for real estate and for non-real estate. I'm always looking to do what I can in this world to help and to support and to serve other people.
Love it. Thanks, my friend. That is a wrap.